Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast, and hopefully you caught part one of this. If not, encourage you to go back and listen to part one, but you don't have to either. If you're ready to rock and roll, let's jump in. But this is part two, a Father's Day special with our daughter Leah and myself, with Sean and Morgan Hilliker, and we are going to get into some very, very interesting, you might find it entertaining. At the end of the day, I was like, wow, did we just really get into that? We get into a conversation, an experience that Leah and I had in London, England, and it was kind of cool the way the tables got turned, and Sean and Morgan sort of came back to us and say, hey, let's talk about that, and so it was cool. This is a great conversation. Hope you enjoy. Let's dive in. So cool.
I feel like you guys probably have similar situations from just being involved in the church too, like because you're both so involved, and I feel like you see a lot of each other here. And
during
it has been interesting.
The first year of COVID, Leah took a year off school and worked full time at the church.
And there's a lot of change and things going on right then, so it was interesting. But
so going to school with your dad is one thing, but working with your dad, how'd that go?
Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Well, first I just want to say I totally resonated with what you were saying about like being out in the grocery store and like, people coming up and recognizing you and just like so appreciating you, even though they just saw you for the first time in however many years. And we have that all the time too. I mean, with your involvement here at the church and in the Brampton community, like, we always joke at home in our family, like we can't go anywhere without dad being like stopped like 3 or 4 times. We're like walking, we're like, where'd he go? And he's like talking to another person along the way.
That's awesome.
But it's totally something you're just like proud of. It. I mean, it can be annoying when you're like a kid and you're like just trying to get to wherever, get back to the car.
Cam, our middle guy, was probably his patience would be probably he'd be okay with that. He knows that. And
you have to add an extra 20 minutes onto your trip.
We had to do a process where if Cam was getting frustrated, because when I'm out, like at point, of course you got to honor people and you love people, but I'm with my kid. Like I do want to make sure they don't hate me or what I do, because and when he was little, he would get frustrated. So as a Cam, like if we're standing and talking to somebody and you just find yourself like you just don't have any more patience left, it's time for us to go, then just pull on my pants, like just give my pants a little tug. So there were sometimes where I thought he was going to pull my pants. So anyway,
but it is something we can be proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a good getaway to my son. But it is something you can be proud of, just like seeing your parents like touch so many people, and it does inspire you. And it's kind of cool. You were saying some of the things you're proud about in Morgan is like hearing how she's touched people, but you've been inspired by your dad.
I feel like I'm
be
probably
that way
because of
it's so
those
cool.
lessons.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like I see you being a force in the community and helping people and doing what you can to be there for others and love people, and so I take that on too. I'm like always inspired by that and trying to grow in that. But in working together, I mean, I see that even more amplified. So obviously it's even more inspiring. But also we learned a lot about each other in terms of our like workflows. And there's a lot we're really similar in. We both like dream and are passionate and like, get everything coordinated and organized. But I think we have different ways, I guess, of being organized. I definitely think through way more of the details and come up with some of those things where you would be even more of the sort of big picture, dreamy territory. So I'm trying to think of specific examples. You might think of stuff. I'm trying to recall. It feels like a lifetime ago now.
Overall, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I just love sharing my life, our life together, and doing things together, whether it's going on hikes or working at the church. Let us contribute to something that we both really believed in, and just and so it was absolutely awesome. But there were some challenges. I just want to be real. There was definitely some challenges. And in fact, maybe this might be a time to shift gears a little bit and talk, because we love each other, we appreciate each other, but let's face it, we're human. We can rub each other the wrong way. Before we kind of slide into that, I would just want to add my appreciation and how proud I am of Leah. I love Leah's thoughtfulness, like for sure caring, absolutely, but depth of thought. So, it's cool that you said you'll ask me what I do. I think I come to Leah way more and say, Leah, what would
that's
you
the cool
do?
Thing about our
what do you think about this? Because
awesome.
I really respect your thought. I really respect the depth of your thought. And you think about things that I sometimes don't. But I also feel a grace, which I think we as parents also need to give to our kids or anyone asking, like, I don't feel, you'll give me your opinion, you know that sometimes there's a bigger picture, the other factors. So I may not do what you say, even though I'm really listening to your opinion. But I love, like, I really respect Leah's opinion because of the relationship we have and because of who Leah is. I think Leah can say things to me that maybe other people wouldn't, though I wish they would. So no one has given me more honest feedback over the years than Leah. But I really appreciate that. To me, that's love. Like, if my ego's in the way, then like get me out of the way, right? Like big time. And don't get me wrong, like we all have that, and I have to work through that for sure. But I never feel unloved, even if it's like, hey, Dad, when you said that in that meeting, do you know what everybody else is thinking? Like, no, tell me. Like, oh gosh, I gotta change that. Yeah. So working together, I had someone on our team that could give me that kind of feedback. So I grew in the way of like, I got to make sure there's more people that can give me that kind of feedback. Otherwise, I can't possibly be the best leader I can be if I'm not getting that kind of feedback. So I get whether it's a message, whether it connects with people or not, whether it's just whatever it might be. I love that what Leah brings. Leah's work ethic is extraordinary, off the charts. So the
inspired by you, truly.
The downside of that is sometimes we who are perfectionists and work hard need to slow down and take a break and be easy on ourselves. So I would say the challenge with Leah as her parent is to try to encourage her around that sometimes and I've seen you grow in that way, like in huge ways. But I remember in high school, at the end of Leah's high school, it was like this time of year, May, June kind of thing. And there's only 6 weeks left. And she's been on the student council and she's been this and that and working in life, and I remember saying to her, like, Leah, like, I hope it's okay, Sean, as a teacher. But I was saying, like, Leah, like you need to have fun the next 6 weeks. Like you got 90, whatever. Like, it's not going to change. Like,
I'm going to music school.
Skip some classes. Go out with your friends. Have some fun. And Cam, who's Mr. Fun, is like, I could just see him. I look over and say, that is not for you. You have no problem with fun. And not that Leah has a problem with fun at all, but just your work ethic is so beautiful.
In that period of time, too, I definitely did struggle to just... be free and just do those kinds of things.
I can relate to that.
And you've definitely grown in that and working in time, for yourself and taking care of yourself and having a day off and those kinds of things.
And that was, I think, something we struggled with working together at first, where it's like, I was living at home too, because it was the beginning of COVID. So we worked together, whether it was here at the church or at home, and then we'd finish working, but we were still at home. And so I just found we were talking about things all the time, right? Like we sort of it was all consuming. And so we sort of had to create some boundaries at some point where we don't talk about it. Like if you need to ask me about something or I need to ask you about something work-wise, we actually set up a meeting. We don't just, I'll talk about it with her at home, or I'll talk about it with him at the dinner table. Because it was just, it became like even though there was not a lot else going on in life because of COVID, it was just like, this was it. And it was just too much. Like, so that was tough at first. And once we settled some boundaries, it felt a lot better. But at first I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? It was just not, it was starting to become not fun, but everything was supposed to be fun. And it just wasn't for a bit.
But that's good. Again, like we were talking about, like that you felt comfortable, like setting that boundary and talking about that with each other. I think that's like the big theme. It's like, as long as you feel comfortable and it seems like you both have made space for that in our households and in the personal relationships. So that's really
that clarity of communication,
really impactful.
And just being willing to have, like, even if there's people like who are listening who don't have these kinds of relationships, and like, how can I build a better relationship with like anyone, but especially like a parent? It's like, it might not be easy at first, especially if you haven't like just had open communication, but like you go through it a few times and then those walls just start to tear down, and it is easier to just be honest in the moment, which is so freeing in any relationship, like we said.
And there's so many like non-nuclear families too, where it's just like, this is our personal experiences, and it's kind of interesting. It's to talk about it, because I feel like, I don't know, we may think these things all the time, like, oh yeah, I love my dad, he's great, but you don't often, like, there's not a set aside time to like, really appreciate, not even just for your dad, but just anyone. Be like, I really appreciate you. Thank you for all you've done for me. Sorry if I dropped the ball on certain things. I need to be more present. I need to do whatever. Like, I feel those ways, but don't always say them. So it's neat to have like that space to do that. I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah. No, I hope this sort of sparks others to have these kinds of conversations, because I know about you guys, but I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying this. Yeah. Yeah. But let's talk a bit about where we're different and where it does, because we talked about our differences a little bit and how we overcome those and we work through those. But where, if we're being honest, like we have rubbed each other the wrong way. Maybe there's areas where we think, oh, I wish I had as a parent done that, or maybe you wish, hey, you as my dad, I wish you kind of had maybe done that differently, or learned that lesson earlier. Yeah. Like maybe we might have shifted, and how has the relationship shifted? How have we learned and grown? Over the years.
Yeah. What do you think, Morgan?
Yeah. It's a good point. I feel like, maybe when I was younger, I kind of leaned on the fact more that my dad would do so many things for me that I didn't often like offer as much help, like in terms of like whether it be chores or like doing things for myself, to the point where it became like this kind of pattern of, I kind of relied on you for a lot of things, where now you feel like, oh, like maybe I was too involved, but maybe that was on me too. Like I should have been a bit more like active in trying to help myself and just help like the family, like in terms of different things. I think, challenges, I need to be more present in moments. Like I find I get lost in my phone, I get lost in my thoughts often. And even if we are having conversation, like I do find like I can be drifting, which it's not fair. And it can come across wrong. And yeah, there may be reasons for that. But as a whole, I definitely need to work on, trying to, especially when we're not living together and seeing each other as much, in the moments that we do have together, to really like fully like center in on that and not be sidetracked with other things. That's something I feel like I need to work on, and I would like to, in order to just keep a strong relationship.
Yeah, that's cool. It's probably easy to talk about what we could see ourselves changing.
Yeah,
and maybe that's sort of where we're going with it. With this. Yeah. It was for me, the listening thing that we mentioned, for sure. Like I would think I will constantly be working at that. And so to ask more questions as opposed to talk is just for sure something that I feel the need to keep working on. For sure. I can bring a lot of energy. And again, I always say our greatest strength is always our greatest weakness. And so sometimes that's great, but I sometimes I think, what would it be like to live with me? And so I just think sometimes, like Leah and I were just away for this trip, and we had some great times together. But yeah, like I'm wondering if when we were done, Leah was glad to have a little break from that, because I just maybe too much of the time.
It was funny. There were a few times where we called my mom and we'd share something about that day, and my mom's like, "Well, Leah, you finally know what it's like to travel with your father." Just little quirks, but yeah, but it was funny. It was funny to just, I don't think I learned anything like different or new about you, but it was just sort of like, it's under the microscope when you're traveling. So you definitely are like, go, go, go. And I like to go, go, go too, but we were going, like we got off the flight, 8-hour flight overnight, picked up a rental car, drove 3 hours.
Oh
you drove, I napped. We get to the place we're staying and we went on a 10-kilometer hike.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, probably wouldn't have done that. It was just me. But
I love that you were so open to it.
Oh, yeah.
And that was our slow day. We had the next day, and the next day it just got even bigger, but it was great. Yeah. It was great.
That's awesome.
It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think one place where we're different, Leah, is Leah is very detailed as she described earlier, and I'm not so much, especially around certain things. And so especially like say when it comes time to getting a bite to eat, or like anything will work for me. Like just feed the belly and keep moving, sort of thing. For the most part. So when we were in London, Leah and Leah's what part of Leah is, I think the beauty of her detailed ways is she gets a vision in mind, and this is
hard
there's
for me
like
to stray
it's a
from
dog
it.
on a bone. So
yeah.
she had this certain sandwich place in mind where we were staying in this. Oh yeah.
And I didn't even know what it was called. I just knew we'd passed it one time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to go there.
Yeah.
That's the place.
And so this is like true story here. This is just, we're in London, England, a few weeks ago. So it got to a point where it started to drive me crazy because we only had so much time for lunch. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
And I can tell he's getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want you to ruin my lunch too, and me ruin yours.
Yeah. So you could just
back and forth.
Feel the the tension was
rising.
building, and it wasn't going any place good at that particular moment. And I think Leah said something like, if you don't want to come, like,
just go have your lunch, at that little pub, and get your drink, just like yesterday, because he's a creature of habit too.
Okay, fine. So I actually said, okay, cool, and I started walking away. Right? And all of a sudden it just hit me, is like, this is dumb. Like, I'm in London, England with Leah. I'm not going to go eat lunch on my own. Just get over yourself and put in a few extra minutes and find the sandwich that she wants. So I said, Leah, can I still come with you?
He's like calling after me.
And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, that was dumb. I shouldn't care so much. It's all good. But you could see where rubs happen, right? And where people
totally.
just these little things become big things.
Oh,
and in the moment, it was not a very good moment. Like, it was really quite frustrating for both of us.
Because also you're like a creature of habit. You were like, that place we went yesterday was awesome. But in my head, I'm like, we're in London, England. There's so many places. I've seen so many. So, but I'm not necessarily voicing that, and you're not either. So we're just like, why don't you understand? Why wouldn't we just go here? And I'm like, why wouldn't we just? So once we finally understood that, it was helpful. But
so I came running back, and we found the place.
There you go.
We
nice
did.
to have a video clip of this moment.
It would be really cool. It turned out great.
Was the sandwich good?
It was delicious.
Okay,
I'm so glad we got it. And you helped me find it because I was walking in the wrong direction anyways. So it was perfect. And we still had time to go and stand outside of the pub where you wanted to eat.
But that's a good
win-win.
That's a good point too, though, because having those moments of conflict doesn't mean anything's wrong. It's good. It's normal. If you butt heads or whatever, that's it's not a bad thing necessarily. It happens in life.
Good on you for taking that trip, by the way, because life's busy, and there was probably many excuses you could have come up with for why not to take the trip. But for you guys to have that time together, cool. That's priceless. Yeah. So that sounds like an awesome memory maker.
That's
but I will say this, it made me think, this is about father-daughter relationships, but it's really about parent-kid relationships, relationships in general,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you told this really great story just now, and it started off a little bit tense.
Yeah.
And how many times in our lives do we get in a disagreement, especially with the ones we care about the most, right? And so that's the thing, is how do we turn it around? Because how easy would it have been to get your back up and storm off, or get frustrated and start going down that rabbit hole and get all worked up over, this is what happened to this trip. But I don't know, what was it that made you turn around and from the pub and say, wait a second, what am I doing? And you know what I mean? Because part of me thinks that it's because of the connection you have. If we don't have a strong connection, I think it's easier to turn our back on someone. Like he talked about how much he appreciates the fact that you give him the honest feedback that maybe some people might not be as comfortable, right? And he respects that. But I think it's because, they say you have to connect before you can correct.
Nice.
Like, you have to have that trust and respect for each other to be able to listen to something that maybe you don't want to hear, but maybe you need to hear. So the fact that you have this great relationship, I think, is maybe why you were able to turn that around. But I don't know if you could bottle that or come up with a book. You'd have a bestseller in your hands, because how many times does a little thing become this unnecessary thing? And look how simple it was for you to turn that. All you had to do was turn around. Hey, you know what? Forget about the thing. Let's do it together. How much energy did that take? And how much time did that take? Not much. But what a difference it made.
Exactly.
And I find that's true about life. Like, when you look at problem areas in our lives, it's a lot of times it's just a subtle mind shift or an attitude shift, or saying something nice, or it's not big things that make big differences. Little things.
Absolutely.
Totally.
So what would you say? Any advice on that?
So what happened in that moment that led to
that, or anything that could be applied?
So can I go back to that, and then I'll answer the second one. I gotta hope that there's this thing called love that is so deep that I just realized my love for Leah is greater than whether I get to have a beer on the corner of this pub that was really cool yesterday. you know, and I, for me, there's a sense of the Holy Spirit working, like somehow beyond me, because I'd like to say that I'm capable of that on my own, but I don't know that I am. I think there's something that was going inside of me that was greater than me, and I praise God. I'm grateful for that, you know, as well. And I think totally agree, Sean. Just the depth of relationship that we have, which is grace filled and has humility to it. I think there was a piece of that for me, like, because you could stomp away and say, well, because I could have stomped away and said, well, she should be doing, and I'm not saying you should have. For me, is what can I do in this moment to make this better? And, you know, obviously, anyway, I'm glad it turned out the way that it did. But so what does that mean for this conversation? I love how you've explained it. It's not just about father-daughter here. This is relationships, colleagues, neighbors, couples, whatever. I'm thinking that we really need to learn how to have tough conversations with each other. In fact, that's what is allowing us to have such a great relationship. And I think probably the ability, there's no reason to think that we won't continue to have that ability, that, you know, around this table, but that may be the depth of a relationship and how good a relationship is going to be over time. It won't be just about how you love and appreciate in that kind of way, but also how you love each other through being able to have challenging conversations, bring clarity. This is what I need. When you did that, forgiveness, apologizing, like those kinds of things, which can be difficult conversations that often people don't get to, and just wonder, why aren't we as close as we used to be? Yeah. So let's talk a bit about that. What does, maybe it's happened. Maybe there's an example. How do you feel about that? Yeah.
I think there can be an element of stubbornness too. Like, I feel like sometimes if I'm in a disagreement or something, if it's been going on for long enough, there may be a point where you're hearing the other person out and you're like, oh, that kind of makes a lot of sense. But you've been, you know, this is my point, this is my stance. And you almost feel a bit of pride in, like, it would be a blow to your ego to admit you're wrong or admit, okay, maybe this is not worth it. So I feel like just learning, and it takes time. Like, I'm not perfect at it. I feel like no one is. But just realizing what's really important, like what you were saying, like your love for Leah is so powerful that, who cares about this beer on the corner? But it could be a moment of, you feel kind of proud in that moment and you're like, no, this is what I believe. Like, why should I have to?
This is what I want to do.
And maybe that is the case. But, like, you know, if you look at the grand scheme of things and think, okay, what is truly of value? And is this really going to serve me best to hold on to this? Like, not even just for the sake of the relationship, but for me, like, to feel this, like, resentment or, like, this, like, I don't know, bubbling inside. Like, let's just drop it. Or I always try to go to sleep. Like, I say I love you to people, like all the time, which may be annoying to some people, but it's because I'm like, I want people to be reminded of this. And I never want to go to sleep angry or, like, feel like there's tension. And so just, it's hard, but sometimes just dropping a bit of that ego you might have about a certain
humility.
situation.
Totally.
Leah, please talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
I just want to say, when you said what's best for you, for me, I realize in that moment now, I wish I could tell you that I was doing it because it was best for Leah. I think I did it because it was best for me. And it was making me very sad to think that here I'm in London, not having lunch with my daughter because I didn't have patience for a 5-minute extra walk to find the sandwich that she really wanted. Anyway, so I think it was, so humility, where do you see humility in all of this?
Well, just where you're saying, like, we can be prideful of, like, this is what I think and this is what I want to do and I'm important. This is important to me. So it feels like the most important thing, but what's important to you isn't necessarily always what's right, and sort of being able to have humility to drop some of those things and, I mean, put others first in certain moments and be able to do that. And also what was striking me when you're talking about, like, both of you are talking about that, is, like, not being afraid to have your feelings hurt. Like, because sometimes, like, tough. Whether it's being honest or whether it is, like, you know, dropping your guard down and trying to be humble and, like, accept humility, you sort of are almost, like, hurting your own ego and pride at times, and that might hurt your feelings. Or if someone's trying to be honest with you, it might hurt your feelings. Like, having tough conversations with people to try and get closer. If it's a tough conversation, it's probably because it hurts on some level for somebody in some part of the conversation. but it's kind of the only way we can grow. If people are always just telling us wonderful things about us and that things are fine, oh yeah, that's cool, that's great, like we really stay stagnant.
Yeah, that's
so not being afraid to like have your feelings hurt and be like, oh yeah, I do that and that sucks, I can't believe I do that. Like I've definitely had people point things out to me, we're like, you've been doing this a lot lately, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. I can't believe, yeah, thanks for telling me, that hurts. I'm going to accept that for a moment and then see what I can try to do about it. But like, we can so easily put that guard up and be protective of like, you know, what we do or how we do things because we just want to defend ourselves. But dropping that guard down is so hard, but so important.
I've often wondered, is it a confidence thing? Like, I've always found the people that I think are the most confident are the ones that don't have to tell anybody about it. And it's like when you're in an argument or you're in a heated conversation or someone just makes a little comment, and if you feel like you have to get the last word or you have to like go out of your way to point out that you think this is wrong, it's almost like, you know, why do you have to, you know, prove it? You follow Simon Sinek?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah,
so he's got something on this. I'm thinking it says, show up to improve, not to prove. I think he says, don't show up to prove, show up to improve. So you're not trying to prove anything to anybody. You're always just trying to improve. Be open-minded. Maybe I had an opinion that I thought this, but maybe you thought that. Doesn't mean you're wrong. It's like there's another great saying, you know, just because you have the right to an opinion doesn't mean your opinion is right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so I find when it comes to, you know, relationships, getting close to someone, you have to be able to have, like, I really like what you said. Like, how many of us are really open to tough conversations? Because I'll tell you right now, if I'm being honest, I find that very difficult.
Oh, I shy away from like confrontation and things like that too.
I was actually at a basketball camp a while back, and I love the camp. Shout out PGC basketball.
Oh, we love PGC.
Yeah.
Oh, you love PGC? We're good friends.
Well, Mom, if you're listening,
Imagine
great stuff. So, and the reason I love those basketball camps is because it's way more than basketball.
Absolutely.
It's about leadership, communication. It's about life skills. And one of the leaders, the very first camp I went to, I was able to go with my son. I wanted to expose him to this stuff because I really felt like it was valuable. The camp leader had a classroom session, and he talked about, you know, in life, you're often going to have to choose between what you're going to prioritize, harmony or honesty. And it's kind of what we're talking about. Do you want everybody to get along? Do you want to just like avoid issues that are going to be uncomfortable? You know, let's just all get along, right? Because I often choose harmony over honesty. It's my default response. But, you know, getting your relationship to the point where, you know, you can be honest, it takes time and it takes trust, and that's built over time, right? And,
sure.
You know, as a teacher, there's something that I think of when it comes to my classroom and my students and how to be effective, but it also could be applied to any kind of relationship, is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's the same with relationship. It's like, okay, are we trying to prove that I'm right or what I know? I'm the parent, like I know better. You got to do this. But really, are you really hearing it from their perspective? Like Morgan made a good point. Like, she's from a different generation than I am. Her reality of what it's like to be a young person these days is different than what it was like for me. So maybe I don't know it all. And so, you know, I have to be really aware of that.
And also even just like being like a young woman too. Like, I feel like in society, like, I feel like there are different things that men and women go through that maybe we don't always see things from that perspective because we haven't ever felt that way or lived it. So that's even an added kind of element to the father-daughter relationship that can make it, you know, even more complex.
Yeah. I actually don't know if we've heard from you yet, Sean, on like if there was a moment where you and Morgan rubbed, or like just how some of your differences come out.
Impressive. You stayed with that.
Oh yeah, I was waiting. I was waiting,
and then I wasn't going to force it onto the conversation.
Well, now is the time.
Yeah, just like that. Great body.
I don't know. This has been great. You guys have been throwing it back at us too, which is all we wanted. This is perfect. That's great.
I want to hear everybody.
Well, thank you for giving me a chance to say my piece on that. And I would say that for me, an area where I don't know if I describe it as rubbed the wrong way, but maybe it hasn't gone as smoothly, is that I'm someone who doesn't get upset that easily. And at least I wouldn't show it. like I said, with the harmony thing, oftentimes I won't express it, but I am pretty laid back. Like I don't get worried about a lot of things. And I know Morgan, like she shared, has like so many people, has dealt with anxiety. And so I think an area where I maybe could have done better would be that I'm trying to help her with her anxiety, however it may be manifesting itself in a certain circumstance. I'll approach it from a logical standpoint. Like, well, why are you upset about this? Like, this isn't really going to happen, or this isn't realistic, or think about this. Like, so I'm trying to help her by coming at it from a logical perspective when she's going through an emotional experience, and the emotional side of the brain and the logical side of the brain don't always jive. And so I'm trying to help her deal with an emotional thing from a logical standpoint, and that didn't work too well. So I think I don't always, plus I guess I have to appreciate that, you know, just because I don't get upset about something that it wouldn't bother me, you know, it could cause some serious anxiety for someone else. So I guess understanding the whole anxiety thing, and so many people struggle with it. And I'm not saying I never get anxious, because I do, but that would be something that I would say it came to my mind when the question was brought up. So I'll say that.
I feel like,
huge,
I feel like at times too, it's easy to think, oh, you're being irrational, for example. Like if I'm thinking something might happen, I have a lot of, like on the daily, just these things that kind of come into my mind, and then it kind of, you know, affects me for a long time, that maybe to other people, it's like, well, that's never going to happen. That's irrational. But in my brain, like it feels rational. Like it doesn't feel irrational to me. So if you're telling me, well, that's irrational, it's like, but it's rational to me. That's how I think. That's what I feel and believe, even if it might not be in actuality. But because of this severe, you know, it's a disorder, like it's an actual thing so many people, like you said, go through. It's different. It's not necessarily easy to combat it with like the logical side of it. But yeah, I feel like, that is definitely something that has been brought up in our conversations or in our relationship, that has been a point of like a bit where you're kind of like butting heads on how you would handle a certain situation. I feel like you're open to listening to what I appreciate, which is helpful, because I feel like, back to what you were saying, Leah, about sometimes you don't want to hear something that's hard, because then you'd have to like, you don't want to ever feel like in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, those hurt feelings.
Yeah, you don't want to feel hurt. Like but I feel like you're pretty good at being like, okay, I can improve in this aspect or this area to make the communication better.
Absolutely. The word hard has come up a lot here in the second half of the conversation, which I think is really helpful for us to be aware of, but also for others who are listening, is it takes work to make a relationship good. But it's worth it. It's worth the work.
It's not always just natural.
Absolutely. No. And that's okay. It's okay. Guys, this has been amazing. I know it's kind of time to wrap up here, so I want to do a little bit of Good News Podcast rapid fire. I want to do it in a different way than we normally do, because this is just such a unique episode. I wonder about just really, really kind of addressing the question: what's like something that you love to do? Because I haven't actually talked about things that we love to do together. And so, what's the best thing that you either done together or that you want to do together? Because it could be past. Or the future, and I'll jump in.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah. So I'm kind of building off of this excitement that Leah and I had, just being away. We did a bunch of hiking together,
nice.
And so I just love to do more hiking with Leah, because the adventures that we were blessed to have, I just think there's many more to come. I just love doing things together. We've ran together for years. We've worked out together. We've worked together. I just love doing stuff together, and just sort of a hiking trip with Leah, and might need to include her mom on this one too, because and if Alex wants to do that's great too. So we'll see what happens. But definitely some more hiking trips in the plans for the future for sure.
I definitely. I mean, being active, that's something like, especially as I got older, once I started to get into working out and doing stuff like that, something we really shared together. I mean, you always talk about how great our conversations are when we go on a run. Like, I mean, you know, even 25, 30 minutes, like you can talk about a lot. We're not listening to music. We're just looking around. Like it, you know, you can talk about a lot. So always love those. And I mean, I like dreaming up things with you. Like you're a way bigger dreamer than I am, but it's like kind of fun because it helps me like like I have creative ideas, but it helps me get even more creative, and we sort of like bounce things back and forth. And so when we were working together, we were able to do that. And I've always been involved in the church and know what's going on, which made it cool to work together because I had all this context that not everyone has or people have to develop, but I've just known the place for so long. But it was fun to come up with new things that the church was going to do or things that we thought were really important, even things that didn't end up happening. But we would have a meeting and talk through it and be like, we can do this and we can do that. And so we kind of are on the same wavelength with a lot of those things. And together with our strengths can cover a lot of this, like, you know, you fill in the gaps where I can't and I fill in the gaps where you can't. And so it's kind of fun to dream up those like bigger events and ideas. That's really I know. This might be a dangerous
I'll pay for
thing
lunch.
to
I'll
say.
text you when we're done. Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, I love those kinds of things.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah. Morgan, Sean, what about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like we kind of touched on, my dad and my brother have more similar interests in terms of like playing sports together, doing things in the outdoors together. Me and my mom, you know, we like to shop, we like to watch our shows together. We have more interests, I'd say, in those regards. But me and my dad love games. We love board games and being like creative and imaginative, like even little games, just like, okay, from like the game Picnic, it's like bringing something with an A and B, like just like little word games or riddles or things. We recently got into this game called O Trio. Shout out O Trio. It's a great game. It's like tic-tac-toe, but elevated.
Were you showing us a picture of that the other day? Okay, yeah.
That's what I showed you. But we just like to do that because it's something that we both enjoy. It might be like, okay, let's half an hour play a quick round. But yeah, like you said, even in a half an hour, so much can be accomplished. Even when you're playing a game, you can talk about other things or I don't know. It's just a nice kind of distraction from life. I love games.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we both enjoy like creative play and group activities, like whether it be games, fun things like that. But actually listening to your story of a trip together, that would be something I would love to do because life is short. You know, they say it's you don't wait for moments, you got to create them. That's kind of my theme. I try to remember that. But now that Morgan's done school, and she has a little more potential in her schedule where we might actually get away and do something. That would be something I would like to set a goal to try and do something. And with both my kids and my wife, like you got to make time for these things, right? That's how relationships get stronger. They got to have shared moments together. And like, how many memories did you make on that trip? And it's not even necessarily like the big tourist attractions. It's just like those little moments on a hike or deciding what time for lunch, right? And so road trips I've always loved road trips. And who hasn't had a road trip that they still talk about to this day, right? So that would be a really cool thing to, and the fact that you're doing it with one of your kids is nice. And now hopefully you'll have a chance to do that with your other kids. And I mean, that would be a great goal to have for the future. So that's cool.
Sign me up.
Maybe the four of us should
look out.
Yeah,
I like it.
Be awesome.
This has been great, guys.
So
Love
good.
to just say a prayer of thanks to
Yeah,
close
of course.
because this has been special. Yeah, let's pray.
Lots to be grateful for.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Oh God, we are grateful. We thank you for all that you've blessed us with. These are very special, important relationships that are as we named, are worth every ounce of work that goes into them. Pray that everyone who hears and watches this will be inspired in whatever relationships they're thinking about, that to show appreciation, to express our love, to have the tough conversations that actually ironically allow us to be closer together over time. So thank you. Thanks for Morgan, for Sean, for Leah, for myself, just grateful for what we've shared here and for the life that you continue to bless us with. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. This was great.
So
You
awesome.
are very welcome. Yeah,
guys
thanks,
are great.
guys.
Yeah, this was awesome.
This was a great experience.
So cool.
Awesome. And thanks, everybody, for being a part of the conversation, for joining us. Always great to have you with us on the Good News Podcast. Thanks for being a part of this special family. God bless you and be with you. Hope to see you again real soon. Well, friends, I just got to say thank you to our team because, as you probably caught, having four of us on, having different camera angles, four people on their own mics, it just adds another level of complexity. And our team, man, I'm gonna get emotional. Our team is the best ever. Like, they really are. I would compare them with anyone and and just so grateful for Matt, for Stephen. Amy's joining our team, and grateful for her as well. But yeah, we're so blessed. We're so blessed. This conversation, I know I'll be listening to it over and over again to keep learning what it means to be in a good, healthy relationship. And what I love is we got real. It wasn't just the positive stuff, which is really important too. You want to encourage. I hope you caught this. It's kind of cool that not only can you be proud of your kids, but your kids can be proud of you. And all of that is important. That's all part of the respect and the growth and maturity as we go through life together. But it doesn't matter how good a relationship is. There's always challenges. There's always misses. There's things that we say that we maybe shouldn't have, or perhaps we say them in a way that isn't helpful. And the only way we can grow through these things is by talking openly about them. And I think, if anything, that got modeled, in this conversation. So really grateful for that. I also got to say, I know Sean would echo this. We are blessed to have two amazing young women here who were able to articulate in a way that I found refreshing, both in the moment, but also listening back afterwards. And we talk about the future. We talk about the next generation. I just got to say, we're in good hands. We are in good hands. I'm grateful for Leah and Morgan and many beautiful young people I know who I get to see as part of my life these days. And yeah, it's awesome. It's a blessing. So hope that you were encouraged. If you were challenged a little bit, that's okay. God will take it the rest of the way. But just to hope that you were inspired, and the relationships that you have in your life, maybe it's not father-daughter that you're thinking about. It could be friends, it could be neighbors, it could be teammates and colleagues. But may this conversation encourage you in those most important relationships in your life as well. Really do appreciate you, value, love you, and thank you for being a part of the Good News Podcast family. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Good News with Jamie Holtom. Love it if you could subscribe so that you get notification every week that a new episode is released. There's more to come. Hope you can join us for the next one, and always glad to be with you. God bless you. Hope to see you again soon.